Congratulations on the adoption. So, you'll be taking care of the dotard, huh? My ex-wife, Melissa, seemed welcome to the idea of her father, Robert, adopting me as his son. You're his son now. You have the responsibility of taking care of him. After dumping the responsibility of caring for wheelchair-bound Robert, Melissa disappeared the next day with Michael, who she had an affair with. With her gone, it was just Robert and me left. Robert, I'm here for you. Let's get through this together. Then, he smiled slyly. All right, so first, let's sell this house. I was dumbfounded. What was he thinking? My name is Edward. I'm a 35-year-old nurse working at a general hospital in town. Having lost my parents to illness early in life, I wanted to work closely with patients and entered nursing school after graduating high school. My life has been work-centered, but lately, I've felt the urge to consider marriage seriously. Many female nurses are working at my workplace, but I've never really hit it off with anyone. I always thought if I were to marry, I'd prefer a woman from a different profession, so I secretly registered a membership with a marriage consulting agency. Despite being introduced to several women, I never really clicked with anyone. Even if I felt a connection, the women would turn me down. Perhaps it's because I don't show much enthusiasm when thinking about living together. I was dumped quickly after splitting the bill on a first date. The staff at the marriage agency advised me, Edward, the women who match with you usually expect a man to at least pay for the first date. Many of them want to be housewives after marriage. Getting married seemed difficult. It was quite a culture shock for me, who assumed it was normal for women to work even after marriage. A housewife, huh? Should I respect that desire? I'm worried I can't afford to provide a lavish lifestyle on my earnings. Men who are willing to accept a housewife are popular. You can consider a life plan where your wife relaxes at home for a few years after marriage and then starts working part-time for her own spending money. Taking the staff's words to heart, I decided to tell the next woman I met that I was okay with her being a housewife for a while after marriage. That's when I matched with Melissa, a 30-year-old. She's the same age as you, Edward, and she's youthful and energetic. I think you should seize this opportunity. The staff warned me that if I missed this chance, my future prospects might be bleak, so I decided to focus on Melissa. Once I met her, she was a pretty woman who had been a campus beauty queen in college. After she graduated her university, she didn't work but took care of her father, Robert, instead while doing house chores. The fact that she had no work experience bothered me a bit, but I didn't dwell on it. I not only paid for our first date, but also the following ones. Melissa had a strong desire to become a housewife, but I accepted that. As we dated, I was drawn to her easygoing and fearless personality. She seemed to like my serious nature. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and I eventually met her father, Robert. He was a farmer with extensive land and a house in the suburbs. Although he wasn't actively farming anymore, he had converted some of his land into a parking lot and was living off the passive income. Robert and I hit it off right away. He had lost his wife 5 years earlier and was living with Melissa. Having Edward here would be wonderful. I think Melissa, though a bit free-spirited, would make a good wife since she's always been helping around the house. The fact that I could spend every day with such a beautiful person gives me joy and motivation to my work life. Actually, the biggest reason for my decision toward marriage was that I was hitting it off with my soon-to-be father-in-law, Robert. When I proposed to Melissa, she happily answered, "Yes, I will." And so, I began married life with her, living together with Robert. For a while after getting married, she was a housewife, taking care of Robert and me. Then, a shopping mall opened nearby, and many stylish stores started hiring part-time workers. She immediately jumped in on it. A jewelry shop in the mall is hiring. I'd love to work in a fabulous store. It was unexpected since she wanted to be a housewife, but I had no reason to object. It's okay if that's what you like. We decided that she could use her earnings for herself, not for household expenses. Thinking about it now, I should have thought it through. Having passed the job interview, she started going to work with flashy makeup. My irregular work schedule meant we had less time together, but Robert stepped up to do the housework. After working the night shifts, he would welcome me home with hot coffee. "It's like I married you, Robert," I joked, and he laughed heartily. Melissa has been out more these days. She always loved flashy things. You might have some dissatisfaction with her, but I'll cover for it. Just be patient, Edward. I don't feel like I'm putting up with anything. I'm proud of her, but most of all, I'm proud of having a great father-in-law like you. It was the greatest blessing that I was getting along with Robert. I didn't tell him, but I gradually started to feel emotionally distant with Melissa. But I figured that's just how marriage is. Above all, Robert was a good man who I deeply respected. That alone made me grateful for this relationship. On such a happy days, one day, something happened. Robert suddenly collapsed while working in the yard and was rushed to the hospital where I work. I heard the news from the head nurse and hurried to Dr. Green's office. Dr. Green told me with a serious face, "Edward, Robert has been hiding his poor health. He's not strong enough for surgery anymore." It was essentially a terminal diagnosis. "Dr. Green, how long does he have? Even with you enhancing his quality of life as a nurse, he might not even last a year." I didn't know what to do and knocked on Robert's hospital room door. Robert understood his fate clearly. "Edward, how long do I have left? Tell me without hiding anything. I want to make the most of my short remaining life. You might not have much time to do what you like, maybe less than a year, but of course, I'll be by your side to support you as much as I can for your well-being." Then, he said something unexpected. "Edward, keep my diagnosis a secret from Melissa. If she knows I'm sick, she'll leave." "No way, she's your only daughter." "I'm sorry to say, Edward, but I can't trust her even though she's my daughter. If she learns I have only a year to live, she'll take all my assets and send me to a remote hospital." I somewhat understood what he meant. Living together, I gradually saw Melissa's true nature. She was a person who rejoiced at the sight of money. As a nurse, I'm not exactly high-earning. It seemed like she regretted marrying me. "I won't let her send you to a remote hospital. I'll take care of you until your last. Don't worry." As he requested, I kept his one-year prognosis a secret from Melissa. That night, when Melissa returned from her part-time job, I told her that Robert would now be living in a wheelchair. As he predicted, I didn't hear any words of concern from her. A life in a wheelchair. I'm not up for taking care of him. I'll quit my job and take care of Dad. Let's support him together. "No way. If you quit your job, how will we get money? I'm not working part-time to support the family." She stormed out and didn't come back that night. The next day, while I was wiping Robert's back in the hospital room, she appeared. She abruptly asked me for a divorce. I was dumbfounded. How could she make such a decision when her father was seriously ill? "If you're married to me, you'll have to take care of my dad, right? I want to free you from that burden." I've never once thought of caring for him as a burden. I have no problem working to support him. Don't think like that. Realizing my determination, she suddenly spewed unbelievable words. I hate this. Pretending to be a good person. I regret marrying you. If I had waited a bit longer to get married and started working at the mall, I would have met someone perfect." "What do you mean by perfect?" "I've found true love. I shouldn't have settled for a compromised marriage. He's entirely different from you. He's a director at a famous company." She elaborated further. "A man named Michael visited the jewelry shop where she worked as a customer. They fell in love at first sight. Michael owned property in the city and was quite wealthy. If she could marry him, she wouldn't need to earn her own allowance and could live a leisurely life as a housewife. The issue was they were both married, but as far as Michael was concerned, there was no love left in his marriage. He wanted to divorce his wife and marry Melissa. "So I need to be single too, Edward, please divorce me." I was already aware that she had married me as a last resort. But such betrayal was still hard to accept. "What about Robert if you marry him? Will you take care of him?" "Of course not. I don't want to ruin my newlywed life with his care. I'll have him admitted to a hospital far away." "You're going to abandon your own father." That's when Robert spoke up. "Enough, Edward, divorce Melissa. I'm ashamed of my own daughter. But without me, you'll be sent to a distant hospital." "Don't worry about that. I plan to adopt you as my son after you divorce her." At that moment, I vaguely understood his intentions. "Oh, that's not a bad idea. Then I can leave Dad's care to Edward and enjoy married life with Michael." I was astounded by her selfishness. "Edward, you don't have any parents. I want you to stay as my son." Melissa sneered mockingly. "That way, you can claim half of Dad's estate. Even if you try to exclude me with a will, I'll claim my rightful share." Melissa, always greedy for money, was sensitive to such matters. But she didn't know about Robert's one-year prognosis. She probably thinks estate matters are far off. "Michael owns a mansion in the city. I'll get part of his estate, so I can give you a little, Edward." A few days later, Michael showed up in the hospital room. Initially, I was angry but kept calm since we were in the hospital. When Michael saw me, he looked apologetic. "Edward, thank you for everything with Melissa. From now on, I'll make her happy. I apologize for her priorities, Robert." "I don't want to be called Robert by someone like you. Get out." I tried to calm down the agitated Robert. Michael stood there, enduring quietly. He had come knowing this might happen. He doesn't seem to be an outright villain. At this point, I even wondered if he was somewhat deceived by Melissa. "See, he's sincere, right? I really love him, so Edward, please divorce me." Regardless of Michael's feelings, clinging to Melissa after all this seemed pointless. Disgusted with her, I agreed to the divorce. "All right, I will divorce her, Melissa. After that, do as you wish." Things progressed swiftly from there. Robert, perhaps feeling he had limited time, was unusually active. I divorced Melissa and became Robert's adopted son. Melissa clapped her hands cheerfully. "Congratulations on the adoption. Now, you take care of the dotard." I raised my voice in anger. What a terrible daughter, calling your own father dotard, but my words meant nothing to her. "Now that you're the dotard's son, you have the responsibility of taking care of him. I'm glad I met a nurse, even if it came with a drawback." She left me with the responsibility of caring for Robert in his wheelchair and disappeared the next day with Michael. For Michael and Melissa to marry, Michael first had to finalize his divorce. Moreover, even after Melissa's divorce, she couldn't immediately marry another man. But such things no longer concerned me. I was determined to make Robert's remaining life as wonderful as possible. So, I wheeled Robert back home. Returning home after a long absence, he seemed relaxed. I tried to encourage him. "Robert, I'm with you. Let's do our best." Robert then grinned slyly. "All right, so let's sell this house first." I was taken aback. What was he planning? He began to convert his assets into cash one after another. He sold the land he rented as monthly parking and the unused farmland. A large sum of money began to accumulate in his bank account. "If I leave too much money, Melissa will take it all. I'll use my assets myself." Edward, will you indulge in an old man's whims? I, now his son, had no desire for his inheritance. Robert's property was his to use, and it was fine if he spent it all. I don't plan to leave any inheritance in this world. Edward, I'm going to enjoy my life to the fullest. That's what I want. That's a great idea. Let's spend it all. Thank you, Edward. I'll do just that. What do you want to do, Robert? I'll be your hands and feet. Just tell me. He looked as if reminiscing something dear. Well, I've lived a life without travel. Being a countryman, I want to travel, preferably abroad. I thought it was a great idea. Leave it to me. Let's go on a world tour. That would be fantastic, but I'm getting weaker. I'm not sure if I can withstand a flight. Don't worry, there are ways to travel the world even without much physical strength. I obtained his consent and headed to a travel agency. Is there a luxurious cruise ship doing a world tour soon docking in the U.S.? The travel agent nodded vigorously and slapped his chest. Leave it to me. I'll arrange the best cruise for your father. The travel agency and cruise staff promised to cooperate to make Robert's remaining days wonderful. A week later, I boarded a luxurious cruise ship at Los Angeles port, backpack on my back, pulling Robert's wheelchair. The cruise ship was like a giant, moving hotel. Traveling by ship is entirely different from flying. There's no need to head to airports or book hotels at every destination. We usually relaxed in our ship's cabin bed and disembarked at ports for sightseeing. Clothing could be bought at shops we visited, so there was no need for a large suitcase. The ease of getting on and off with a wheelchair was my main reason for recommending a cruise. Whether to leisurely tour or stay on the ship, when not feeling up to it, we shared a suite on the cruise, enjoying the comfort together. Each day started with checking Robert's temperature and blood pressure. Breakfast was mostly through room service to ease his burden. On days we moved from port to port, we spent time on the balcony gazing at the open sea. For lunch and dinner, we dined in various luxurious restaurants on board. At night, movies, stage plays, and magic shows were performed. Every day felt like a visit to Broadway or Las Vegas. On sunny days, we went to the pool. Robert didn't swim but enjoyed sunbathing by the poolside. I eagerly applied suntan oil to get a tan. If Robert felt unwell, we simply relaxed in our cabin. Then my nursing skills came into play. The manager and the onboard doctor, who were aware of Robert's illness, assured us of 24-hour medical support. He could enjoy international travel without overexerting himself. For a while after starting the journey, he seemed surprisingly lively. He stepped out with a cane instead of a wheelchair when he felt good. From Los Angeles to San Francisco, then Hawaii to Australia. We became familiar faces to other tourists by dining at the same restaurant every day. Robert quickly made many friends with his warm smile. I'm traveling with my son for the first time, leaving the U.S. You have a dutiful son. My child seems to have forgotten us after marriage, so my spouse and I decided to live as we please. That's all right. Leaving an inheritance only causes disputes. Not just elderly couples, but wealthy young power couples and solo female travelers were among the passengers. One of them was Patricia, a lady in her 60s. She had elegantly dyed pale purple hair, who Robert got along with particularly well. She had lost her husband to illness 10 years ago and lived a lonely life since. My children told me to travel and relax. Gazing at the sea, I realized how much I fretted over trivial things. Robert, having lost his wife to illness as well, deeply sympathized with Patricia. They deepened their connection through the journey. The days on the cruise were peacefully unique. Free from rushing for flights. Watching the blue ocean from the balcony, Robert murmured, "When I turn to ashes, scatter me in the sea." Then I can travel the world forever." I nodded silently in agreement. The ship passed the Suez Canal, heading to Egypt, then Greece. Enjoying the contrast of white buildings and the sky in Greece, Robert walked alongside Patricia. I keep a respectful distance. The orange sunset dipped into the blue horizon. Robert gazed at the view next to Patricia. When he felt well, I entrusted his care to Patricia and did my own thing. Eventually, he began to tire more easily, and I acted more cautious. Some nights were tense, but often he would get better by morning. On Christmas night, he had a slight fever. Yet, he insisted on going to the dance hall because he had a promise with Patricia. I consulted with the doctor and got some stronger fever medicine prescribed for Robert. I borrowed a makeup kit from the ship's staff and used foundation to improve his complexion, so he'd appear more energetic. Dressed in a suit tailored in Italy, he looked like a charming gentleman with distinguished gray hair. Robert had learned some basic waltz steps from a woman performing musicals during the day. He practiced them while leaning on a desk. "I'm nervous I might mess up. I hope she won't be disappointed." "Don't worry, the exact steps don't really matter." We used a wheelchair to the elevator, but he walked slowly into the dance hall. Patricia, elegantly dressed, was waiting for him. I gently nudged Robert towards her. "Merry Christmas, Robert." "Merry Christmas, Patricia." As live music played, many couples swirled around dancing. Robert extended his hand and led Patricia to the center of the hall. His steps were shaky, but Patricia covered for him gracefully. That turned out to be their first and last dance together. On New Year's Eve, during the countdown party, I hurried through the ship's corridor, anxious. This ship had a stable internet connection, keeping us always connected to the U.S. Without a personal computer in my room, I used Captain Christopher's room. That day, I received a call from Melissa. After a long time, I find myself face-to-face with Melissa during a video chat. Her heavy makeup seemed a bit off, making her look older. "I had to search hard for you. When did you and the old man go abroad? I'm having a tough time here. Please come back soon. Returning might take a bit longer. Is it urgent? I'm fed up with this life." Michael divorced, but he gave most of his assets to his ex-wife, even the mansion downtown. Sounds like he's more honest than I thought. He separated from his wife on his own accord, so isn't it natural? That's not funny. We're living in a tiny rental now. I thought he'd have some stocks or something, but there's nothing, she exclaimed. Irritated, I urged her to hurry up. "If it's not urgent, can we talk later? I want to spend every second I can with him." "What's wrong with him? Bring him here. I have something to say to him too." At that moment, Christopher knocked and entered. "Edward, your father is." I understood immediately and closed my eyes. "What's wrong? Say something." Silently, I ended the video chat. "Could you please leave me for a while?" Christopher quietly responded with an "as you wish." Returning to the room, I found Robert peacefully closing his eyes, holding Patricia's hand. As requested in his will, I returned Robert's ashes to the sea. After everything ended, I bid farewell to the other passengers and returned to America alone by plane. At the airport, I was greeted by an angry Melissa. I heard Melissa broke off her relationship with Michael during my cruise. "So, you split without marrying. Must have been tough." But I knew she wasn't expecting such words. "You really turned everything into cash. Spending it abroad like that is the worst revenge on me." The inheritance Melissa was supposed to receive was thoroughly spent by Robert. Is there even a little left? Well, there is a small piece of unused farmland left. Just that land. Unbelievable. It won't even sell for much. Still, it's better than nothing. I'll renounce my inheritance, so you can do as you please with it. She trembled with frustration. To think this was once my wife, it felt strange. As I turned to leave, she shouted at my back, "Hey, what are you planning to do now?" "Just going back to my usual days." Thanks to Robert, I had the opportunity to travel around the world. I'm only grateful to Robert for sharing his dreamlike days with me. As for what happened to Melissa afterward, she sold the small piece of land she had left, but it didn't amount to much. At the jewelry shop where she once worked, she was criticized for having a relationship with a client and struggled to find re-employment. Her flamboyant behavior was well known locally, and even a supermarket part-time job rejected her. Now, she lives away from her hometown in an old apartment, working in building maintenance. The days I spent with Robert significantly changed my life afterward. I started working as a nurse on a cruise ship belonging to the same line as the luxurious one we traveled on. This cruise ship is used by many American passengers, so they valued a nurse who could speak English. I had a good working rhythm with a British nurse who was my partner. Working while traveling the world is the best. Robert gave me a great experience, which was more valuable than any inheritance. Inspired by his fulfilling final days, I want to live a life that I can look back on and think was good.